go ahead and call the meeting to order. Do a roll call. Carrie Steffi, that's me, I'm here. Kate Rose.
She asked to be excused. She could not be here.
Eric.
Here.
Tom. Marshall.
Just council member Jim Wiesner used to be the ex officio. He has stepped aside, and the mayor has Eric Marshall to be the council ex officio. So he'll have both have parks and arts. So welcome.
All right, so I guess we're going to move on to the election of the chair and vice chair.
Yeah, so we put that on there with Jana Warner stepping down. She was the chair, so we need to select a new chair. And then the event the vice chair was selected, I also put the vice chair selection on. So we do have one vacancy that I don't have any applicants as of yet, so I can tell anyone on the website. So we have one position vacancy, position 2, and one alternate vacancy.
Two vacancies, so. Wants to. And I need to reach out to a few people. Come by my office a few times with interest in different parks things. I'll make a difference. Get on board, get in front of council.
I think do we have anyone who wants to nominate anyone for chair or chair?
Nominate Karen.
As put on, second that nomination for chair.
Okay. Should we vote on that?
Yeah.
All right. Do we need a motion?
No, I don't.
Okay, so should we go ahead and vote on that? All in favor? Okay, so then we need to elect a vice chair. All right, I'll second that. All in favor?
We will make note that you both raised your hand in favor of yourselves for this position.
I just want to be simple here.
That means there's no complaining about.
All you have to do is run.
Yeah.
But Carrie's
No, it's
really good,
fine.
so.
I was waiting for Tom to step up.
I did.
Yeah, I know. First guy to draw wins. Well done. Well played.
All right, so let's move on to the approval of the agenda. Changes that everybody had.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
All in favor? So move on to the approval of the minutes for today's meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve, but I have a question first.
Okay.
This one got by me at this. RFP responses, the city has received 6 responses to RFPs regarding federal government relations. Call it discussion, but can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, and I had that in my director updates to talk about. So we put out a request for proposal for federal relations for basically lobbies to help us with several large projects in the city, including marina projects, dredging. We have the Harbor Way. It's a federal channel that we just want some help working with the governor's office and also the state's engineers to get work done there. We have some infrastructure projects, and then they'll just help us along with our grant writer. They make a big difference. So we were $1.7 million forestry grant that does 5 different very large beautification projects. It does a forestry master plan, and it gives us additional full-time part-time staff for over 5 years. We can leverage that and now go after DNR's version of that to extend that even further. Those are that basically doubles our parks budget. So having a firm like this, they range anywhere from $5,000 to $7,500 a month, but all the other utilized firms like this in other cities that I've worked in, and for almost $1 million for springs, renovations of our municipal airport there, projects, several street infrastructure improvements projects. So anyway, that's the kind of what we're doing. We're meeting tomorrow. With a couple members of council. So review that. Selection.
Questions about that? Okay,
Second.
all right, all in favor? Public comment. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our discussion items. Electric bicycles.
So this came from a public comment that I received and had a little bit of discussion with, and Denise Marion sent this in. I told her I would bring it to the park board just for some discussion, and it was just a complaint about electric bikes, asking if there had been any talk about a speed limit for bikes. Some of the electric bikes, she says, aren't ridden very cautiously, much faster than a walking pace. And it's a hazard for older folks like me and people with dogs or young children. And so I just replied, no, we haven't had any discussions around it. This is the first complaint I've gotten about it. Putting up a speed limit sign doesn't really work. Bikes don't have speedometers.
Right, yeah.
And so, there's a couple of like traffic calming things you can put in, but we can put in or enforce an auditory signal, a bell or whatever, or something for bicycles. She said, yes, bells and vocal alerts work well if the riders signal early enough for walkers and pets to respond. Most cyclists are polite, but sometimes their call is too late for me and other older walkers because our reflexes are slower and balance more easily thrown off. If you add speed to the cyclists, you can see it is worse. Bikes don't have speedometers, true, though. So setting a numerical speed limit would be pointless. Perhaps just signs signaling cyclists to slow to a walking or jogging pace would work. I'll throw in another good idea. I think just to put in the discussion, install a crosswalk across Scenic Heights at the end of the Scenic Heights Trail. It would connect the walking path from Swantown Road down Southeast 19th Court to the trail, so bikes and walkers can go all the way down without driving. I live on Southeast 19th Court, and there's quite a lot of foot traffic doing just that. There's also increasing traffic going at speed on Scenic Heights because of increased congestion on SR20. There may be climate change funding available. So I just wanted her, this is the first claim we've received about electric bikes. We're going to monitor and get some data about it for further discussion. See if there are any problem areas like places with blind curves that can be addressed. We try to avoid putting up a sign every time there's a bad behavior in the tree, otherwise we'll be inundated with them. But if it appears better, education is needed beyond good sight lines. We'll look at it. Enforcing bikes to have an audible device like a bike bell has helped other communities where people are startled by a bike passing by as well. So this is just kind of a discussion we had. I have not heard of complaints with bikes, but I'd like to get your guys' thoughts and comments on that.
For point of clarity, what are the rules on motorized vehicles on sidewalks and trails? Because I think a lot of the concern is on the trail on scenic heights and then for Windjammer, is that being shared? But is there any rules against motorized vehicles being on those trails? Because they have an electric motor. And if there are, then they shouldn't be on the trail.
Electric bikes aren't considered a motorized vehicle. This is, something we looked at in other states around the country. Bike trails, other electric bikes, not, should we regulate them?
Right.
And the consensus so far, from my experience, has been, let's not find a solution to a problem that doesn't exist yet. If it's a problem, then it'll be a problem. But I think the benefits of encouraging more people to get out and get involved. This is a tool for older adults, or people that wouldn't normally take up cycling to take it up. But there are definitely some trails, more like commuter trails, where you have a long straightaway and people actually start moving, that you do want to be conscious enough of people going back and forth to school. I haven't heard of any issues on
I've heard of some issues on where the trail curves down there because it's tight with the brush growing around the trail down there that people can't see on those curves. And this is where some of the balance issues, and especially because we have, kind of some of the grass and stuff encroaching on there that makes an uneven surface on the edges of that trail for people that have maybe some lateral mobility challenges, let's call it. Then that becomes a thing. They're startled, they move, and then there's the potential for a fall. But other than that, I think honestly, if we just keep in our mind to widen that up and maybe bring some of that brush back, like you said, all the reasons that you gave for why to leave it alone makes sense to me. I don't know.
I almost got hit by somebody on an electric bike, that little marsh area there you're talking about, so interesting to bring it up. But in talking to colleagues and other places, it seems like, right, they're just treating them as bicycles.
I am dubious when a trail builder comes in and wants to put in, like they want to put a mountain biking trail. They kind of sell it off to the city as, oh, this is a multimodal trail. We'll use it for equestrian, it's for hikers. No, there's such yeah, especially if it's a downhill, kind of trail where they bring those kind of features. They're just zipping down there so fast.
The moment it's rutted out, it loses any multimodal.
So I've always have had the sign, this biking only, take your life in your hands if you're hiking up these things. So those have to be separate. But pathway, your trails, so you mentioned kind of the sidelines.
Yeah.
That's something we could address. I think widening the pathways is also some communities, they opt for going with the 10-foot pathways, and then if they do get a lot of bike traffic, they'll have the delineation line, just to kind of keep people on their side. You have to get noticed.
I think just knowing, like you said, that the growth in this as a new form of recreation and or pseudo exercise is, we should just bear in mind that when we create trails and create paths, especially like, major wider paths that we want people to access and share, making sure they're wide enough, making sure that they can accommodate the sightlines for a little bit higher speeds potentially, which should be fun. It's not
I
issue
personally
with signage and regulation and a bunch of stuff we don't need to have to enforce. I don't have the personnel to either.
I personally just like sign pollution. Just bring up rule signs everywhere in parks. But there's so much bad behavior that can happen in those public areas with conflict of interest. Sometimes you have to do those things. I don't know. You guys are more familiar with that trail than I am so far. Is there a location where a sign might be beneficial? I don't know if there's. There are bike speed bumps you can put in, but those can also become a walking trail as well. So,
I run that trail a lot, all the way down the road and back. And I think the only things that I've seen people or what I already mentioned is where it curves, and that brush, especially when it's in leaf, it's thick and it gets darker in there, and I think it just makes it a challenge for people. And obviously, it also encourages maybe some unauthorized camping. So I think thinning that stuff out, widening it up, bringing more light in there, widening the trail, it's going to solve all of our problems. And it's really only in those you go past the bridge and where the access is near Heritage Bank, right there where it turns, and then where it turns back to go across the bridge. It's all right in the most spots, but then like the overgrowth is kind of ubiquitous on the trail.
Are people just coming quickly because they're kind of coming downhill into that?
Yeah. And I think you have multiple entries because people are coming from the marsh proper, from that trail that goes up to the water. There's people coming in through before first bridge, or right after the first bridge, and then again where it kind of opens up where we walked in on our tour. And then you've got people coming in from the street, you've got people coming downhill, and you've got people coming across the bridge. So you just get more people kind of merging together. And the thing about people, they don't know how to merge. So yeah, I think honestly, just lighten up and then thin it out, create the sight lines is going to solve all the problems.
I've used that trail quite a bit, mostly for running, but I haven't really had an issue. But I can understand where there could be an issue. There are a couple of blind corners. The other thing that happens is people walk dogs, some of them multiple dogs. So you got a dog on this side of the trail, a dog on that side of the trail, and a leash between all of them. So, that could happen what you do with it. I don't know if you want to put a small article in the Would-Be News Times or something, just saying, hey, this is maybe becoming an issue we haven't had before. Please just be courteous. Or that might just draw attention to something you don't want to draw attention to.
Well, something we want to always be conscious of is our population just naturally slowly increases. And so, public amenities and spaces that we built for the population of the day we built it for becomes inadequate and not able to handle the volumes, 10, 20 years. That pathway is it's not very wide. I don't think
It was originally probably 8 to 10 feet, but I think
yes.
So nature's doing its thing.
An opportunity with that, if we're able to acquire the property there, we can do alternate trails to kind of get some different ways for people to come in and come out, and that might thin it out a little bit in certain areas.
Yeah, and if we do any improvements to the trail, the non-trail trail out to the water, if we do any access down there at the end of Dillard Lane, then we'll already be down there doing stuff. Make some of those things reality, right?
Yeah, we'll probably put a small parking lot there. Access easier.
We found some old plans with overwork.
Yeah, there's,
Oh, really?
yeah, they were supposed to do some area in there. That's really where I got into the committee, that Citizen Advisory Committee did. Now I find this shrubbery thing that we're supposed to talk about. But if I would have showed them that, we were supposed to do some landscaping in there, and a big overlap look was proposed, so that's something.
Overlooking the marsh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was a big plan for it. They probably did that when they acquired it some time ago. Kind of shrubbery thing, and all we've done is just kept on. Most of it we left naturally, and the other part we just did mowing it for hay. And someone's complaining when it's too,
The allergy calls.
yeah, it's too high. So long term, we got to figure out what we do.
Well,
Another thing I was gonna add too, this is an opportunity talking about electric bikes, I know you're just talking about scenic trails, but we have the active transportation plan coming up. And like you said, for the growing population, finding different avenues for, in electric bikes, there could be more bike paths that they could travel and get to the same area without going through what's intended to be more like walking. So that's coming up in the next year, so.
well, it's current, we've been meeting.
Okay,
and,
so.
I think we're on our first meeting. Next one.
This is probably just one of those things that we keep in mind as we develop the master plan, as we think about what, natural spaces and trails, and what are some of these underutilized places that we, considered and what's our shoreline restoration gonna look like and all of these things is this doesn't seem to be a thing that just going away. So how do we accommodate, knowing that there's one more type of to add to our mind for multi-use and what's that look like? And then maybe we find out from other cities too what they've done and put together a good kind of cohesive idea, and then we just implement it across as the standard that we just implement. We doing improvements for trails or for streets or for sidewalks or whatever it might be, we'll do that, and then we just phase it in.
So unless anyone has strong feelings that something needs to really be put in place, we haven't had an incident or an accident for it yet, but sounds like we've had a few near misses or, some enough concern that we need to address it. So unless you feel otherwise, I think what we'll do is we'll put in trail counters. That will give us we'll look at how many people are utilizing the trail, when the busiest times are. We'll look at the sight lines, and then as we're procuring these properties kind of all around there, we'll be putting in overlook parking lot. We'll look at possibly some trail improvements. We have wind general park funding, we do that to widen the trails and make it a little more multimodal friendly. Especially if we're looking at that area to install like some artwork along there as well, which would also increase the traffic. It might be a good opportunity to address a couple of different.
I think knowing the results of that survey and how high the kind of interest was in walking trails down there too, we should make sure that we do kind of keep this idea front of mind in response to what, our neighbors have all asked for.
Yeah, like the top 4 responses of how people utilize the park is just to go down and walk. They're walking their dog, they're strolling with their spouse or whatever, they're just enjoying nature and getting a little bit of exercise. So making sure we have good, wide, usable trails, safety lighting in places of need, that there's no concerns or issues, safety issues with different modes of transportation.
How do the trail counters, is there a strip they put across or something?
Yeah, it's a like a laser type thing. Crazy. We also advise trail cameras.
They do that in retail areas and sensors that sense the amount of people, so it tracks people coming and going.
So we don't use those rubber ropes anymore. We have to jump on them.
No, they're great. I had them everywhere last year. Just gave really good information. We could see, like, for instance, we saw a 40% overall increase in outdoor activity during the pandemic. At the peak of it, it was 60% increase from the year before. And I've kind of went back down to 40, but it never went down past that. It kind of stayed there. It's interesting. People just got outside what they had else to do. And I think developed some good love of the outdoors. They bought recreation equipment, bicycles, and things like that. And just I think went to outdoors a lot more. Also gives you a good look when you're planning. Okay, where are the heaviest use areas? Where are people traveling to? Where do we have like drinking fountains and pet fountains? Okay, well, thank you for the discussion.
One last comment on that, because we do use that area down there for like one of the city's premier events, the marathon. And with the survey, I just think we should make sure that this kind of remains front of mind. So it doesn't, I know we have a lot of things going on, but just, one of our premier events is that marathon. And it's popular. We should make sure that we're investing in that way as well. I don't know if any of y'all have run that or been down there and spectated, but like for the 5K and the 10K particularly, it gets pretty congested in there as well. But it's a wonderful thing to run people through because it is really a beautiful area. So again, just making sure that we're keeping in mind on what are the premier things that we're standing behind, stamp their name already on, and then making sure we're reinforcing those rather than ancillary interests that don't generate revenue for the city.
Let's go ahead and move on to our subcommittee updates.
So we left this just general and let you guys kind of move the discussion out. We can start with the sports facilities committee. You guys want to talk a little bit about the discussion points. I can kind of go over some of the things we talked about, but
Well, in general, it's a great format. I think it really generates good conversation, a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere. We're not staying on one agenda necessarily. So I thought we had some really good discussion. I thought the format was good, just in messaging.
Yeah, for information's sake, for those not on it, I mean, we talked quite a bit about baseball facilities. Just their condition or lack thereof, and trying to address some of those needs. Also, thinking long-term as far as if and when those will be relocated and what kind of investment we want to put in those to make sure that they're safe. Because that's really one of the concerns right now is they've deteriorated, particularly the league fields, have deteriorated enough to the point where they're not really safe. They're not really actually even to spec as far as design. And so there's some things that need to be done down there. And we spent a pretty significant amount of time and energy, I think, just brainstorming and figuring out what is, as well as trying to make some decisions on what would be fiscally responsible as far as investment in those while we figure out, the master plan. And then we talked in general about what a sports complex would look like and about some of the existing stuff. But I think a lot of our energy was given towards baseball because that's kind of become an urgent thing. And if you've walked that field, it doesn't take very long. You don't have to be a baseball expert. Some kid's going to get a broken ankle or a broken nose just because we don't have the dirt levels right. And with baseball also being a sport that we felt the attention to get to remain as relevant as it has been in the past, and to make sure the safety issues are handled as well. And we have a lot of people in this community that play baseball. So
Also talked about the future requirements of the soccer fields and the playing fields that are not for these. So I think again, it's good that we keep touching on it because it's a ways off what we need. It's going to come what we need to plan now. So it was good discussion.
The conference I just came to, I went to a breakout session on can youth sports drive economic development? So, and, yeah, they can.
Absolutely. I read an article that National Parks and Recreation Association did that for every $1 you put into recreational amenities in the community, you get $4 back in the committee also went over the final edits to the pickleball courts, and that was finalized, and now our procurement officer is posting that. We talked about sports field needs. We went over our current inventory, looked at the soccer, football fields, baseball fields, tennis, pickleball, disc golf, and trails, and just put together what our current inventory is. Talk a little bit about what future needs we're going to be. Tom was assigned to reach out to the Navy to get us in contact for a PR tour. He gave that to me. I reached out to her last week. I was hoping I'd hear back from her before the meeting today, but we're scheduling a field trip to go out and tour their facilities and talk a little bit about their programs, and please join us on that as well. And then, we talked a little bit about future opportunity areas for new parklands, whether it be for facilities or parks, and conversation with Navy for land swap. We have to have some additional conversations with the school district, especially around like volunteer park and Fort Eugene. We talked a little bit about the ball field renovations. So that project is going forward, and we're putting out a formal bid right now. The estimate is it's $148,000 for the materials and the install. So formal bids going out. Hope to get some proposals underneath that amount, but we do have a $100,000 park maintenance grant that we wrote specifically for that project. That'll go towards helping to fund that. And then, that's kind of where we left off. We had a dog park needs on there as well. Briefly touched on that before we ran out of time, but it was going to get some homework assignments and scheduled next week.
So one other thing we talked about too, or I guess it's two other things. One was about changing the way that we do use fees for the different clubs, since we provide for these clubs, and knowing that maybe our structure is a little bit antiquated, and then the price that we're charging maybe doesn't actually reflect the load on the land and then the cost in order to maintain the usage. And to that end, I think we also talked about how do we talk to the clubs and partner with them based on this fee structure, and then how they actually would have a vision for using the fields, should they have, either a different facility or a better structure for how we handle it all. And we talked a little bit about traffic and safety issues, parking issues, again, regarding Fort Nugent, and just knowing that that's a challenge. So I think those are the last of the pieces of information.
Sometimes some interesting concepts come up in a kind of informal setting. Holly had mentioned that he had talked to somebody in the youth sports world. We were talking about fields and synthetic fields as opposed to natural grass, and how that could be a benefit. What interested me was that their comment was, we can get a lot more play out of a synthetic field than we can out of a grass field. Therefore, we may not need as many fields if we can accumulate, a fewer number. That was an interesting concept, whether it's true or not, but those kinds of things are interesting.
The session I just told you about, we got into turf a little bit too on that because of the rain and to be able to, that's the drainage.
Yeah.
So,
Well, not only that, they get, according to him, they can schedule, one thing to
Yeah,
evening.
we put lights on them and drainage, and those two big things we have to worry about here. I mean, the only one we have is the football field, and they're just really particular about it. I can understand that. Certainly, and there's grant money for it. If you go out to do the grant money, then we get the one we were looking at, they were saying, if you want turf, do it now, don't come back and ask it as a afterthought. So that's something certainly to consider.
Well, like with all projects, they're going to be cheaper now than they are next year or the year after that or the year after that. So if you're going to make an investment, it's a substantial investment. It's good to do so.
Eric, I don't know if you had a chance to play on turf. Do you have a personal preference?
The turf would allow us the opportunity to play in all weathers. I mean, Fort Nugent right now, that field's getting kind of tore up and divoted, and that prevents that. But one of the bigger issues that I think that we need is lights. And we're getting into the latter part of our football season now, and we're battling the time. And so once our teams make playoffs, it's a scramble to try to figure out where they can practice, because it's getting dark by 5 o'clock. And so we're trying to rent the stadium, but we're behind the high school football and high school soccer. And so we can't get in until 7 o'clock at night. We're talking about 7 and 8 year old kids. And so that starts to get into their school time, their bedtimes, dinners. And so if we had turf and lights, that would allow us the opportunity, as you mentioned, is we could play much later into the day and schedule more games and more practices and stuff. And so, and then there's a difference in striping. So at Fort Nugent, when we stripe for football, it's not the same striping as soccer. But if we had a turf field that allows for that striping in both, and then we're not having to repaint the field. And, we all have that same opportunity to use that field. And then it's my understanding that Fort Nugent was initially set up for turf. It's got the concrete barrier that goes all the way around the field and stuff. And so it's set up that we could put a turf field in there.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever did the drainage stuff underneath it though, but you're taking out the grass anyway, so you have a
Correct.
chance to redo it.
Yeah.
I know they did on the lower.
They redid the drainage years
They
ago.
redid the drainage.
Yeah, but Fort Nugent, that's why it has that concrete barrier that goes all around the field, is because it was set up with the thought process of putting turf in eventually.
I mean, knowing that our biggest sports are football and soccer as far as use, and knowing that they're all after work hours for a lot of their stuff, and if we ever do go to weeknight games even, like, we have to think about turf and lights. I mean, we have to think about lights for sure. It's just, I mean, it's dark here in spring and in fall,
Right.
for since in the summer, it's clubs and other stuff, it's not the main recreation stuff. It's incumbent upon us to do it. If we're gonna spend money on putting in, building a new sports complex, it'd be silly to think and short-sighted to not put in lights and not put in turf. I think I've expressed my reservation just about the entry levels that you do see higher on turf, but at the same point, we can't afford to not do it. And for the outliers of some potential knee stuff that may happen, it's still better than having an unmaintained thing and having holes in it, which will increase the blown out knees and the blown out ankles and the dislocations and all those things. And it's real hard to dig a hole in turf. You gotta be real motivated,
The base has, I think it's 2 synthetic turf, softball and 1 football field, combination football, soccer.
Mhm.
You'll have an opportunity. I mentioned that to them to have their maintenance guy available. So if you have any questions as far as maintenance was concerned, upkeep, they can answer those while you're out there. Just a personal story on this, because I've never really played on the turf. I grew up in San Francisco in a fairly heavily populated neighborhood. And there was a small neighborhood park that was probably maybe 2 acres at the most. And when I was growing up, it wasn't used at all. I mean, not at all, because it had like little league baseball backstops, and the baselines were all rutted out, the plates were all rutted out. I mean, it's just horrible shit. I mean, you really, even as a kid, didn't feel safe running around on it. And then I went back years later, still have relatives there, and I couldn't believe it. They had put in synthetic turf. It's all level, safe. They lighted it. I mean, it was packed. They must, I mean, it went from absolutely nothing, eyesore, not used at all, to they must have waiting lists for people to use those fields. And they did stripe before. Miniature wasn't that big to handle full-size soccer, but they could do for little kids. They could do for little league baseball to a certain extent. Even though it wasn't full size, people will modify their game to the space. But I'm still amazed that, and this is right. I mean, there are houses all the way around us, like right across the street, on all 4 sides. And I don't think there's any complaints about noise or lights or anything else, because it's really heavy. So anyway, that's my input on the value of having.
So the other thing is the school district appears to be on their own updating their memorial park. But it doesn't sound like they're gonna do turf. They'll have like, I don't know how they're reached out a little bit on that, but that might be a factor there. I think that was an intent, probably to replace the fields that are along the strip. For the school.
Yeah, they're looking to have those available next spring.
Yeah, I think that's a nice stopgap while we figure out the big plan too, is being able to use Memorial in between while we figure out the permanent solution.
We talked a little bit about the sports park. We have a workshop with council on the 25th. Have a discussion around the park plan implementation. So it's really so if you are available, I encourage you to attend that workshop.
What's the date time on that? Yeah.
October 25th, and they start at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock.
Here.
Anything else you want to update or talk about from the community discussion? Then the other one we did was playgrounds and programs.
Yeah,
Here.
we talked a lot about, well, we covered a lot, I guess. With the programming, Liz has a lot list of things to do. And then we discussed the activity guide. That's kind of coming down pipeline, it sounds like. And as far as the accessible park, kind of just did an overview of that. And one of the things that I've been considering is location, and that's something we kind of discussed, but I wanted to hear from you guys too, if there was any input on location ideas or preferences. We've kind of gone over Fort Nugent, replacing that playground, Windjammer, or a completely new location. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. Honestly, I'm not sure. Fort Nugent will need to be replaced, but I don't know how much life it has left. So is that gonna put us off if it's like 2-3 more years left in that? You know what I mean?
I don't know what the life of it is. It's definitely getting near there. The wooden playgrounds are great for community involvement, and, you know, they do a lot of fundraising with the lobbies, style playgrounds, but they don't last very long. They start rotting out under. So we just got a couple of our staff playground safety inspectors certified. They're starting to go around doing inspections of playgrounds. One of our playgrounds after they took a closer look at it after we got some feedback on it. So we'll take a closer look at that. You're looking at a 13 to 30,000 square foot area. The parking is always a consideration, just from the nature of it. Some additional handicap installs. So that requires, let's think about parking lots.
So Fort Nugent, my concern, knowing that we're dealing with like mobility and stuff, is that playground's built on a slope. It's uphill from the parking lot, which is already going to be, well, we don't know what that parking lot's gonna look like after the school gets put in there. Handicap parking is going to be at a premium there. We do have a bathroom though, which is nice, but I worry about that space being, it's pretty landlocked with those the paved trails as well. I wonder about space, and I wonder about contour. Not that those things can't be overcome, but if we're talking about now building a more expensive like ramp situation to get there, and does it have enough footprint there to really do what we're attempting to do? Those would be my concerns. Knowing that that side closest to the parking lot will actually have to be built up to bring it level. I wonder if there is a better location that's already more set up to be flat, to have an easier access to it, so we don't have to do all those other improvements that are going to increase the cost of the project by having to make it accessible. So I think I'd be looking for a place that's flatter and maybe has a bigger footprint, so our imagination isn't stuck inside those paths that are already existing. But again, I know anything can be done, but bringing a project like this in, if we can find lower cost ways to still put it in a good location, that's going to serve the multi-mix population that are going to be able to access that. That's what I'm looking at.
The footprint was kind of my concern with Windjammer too, with where the windmill is supposed to be going. So like it's kind of, there's not really a natural place to put that kind of playground, in my opinion. Is not.
Gucci Park. That footprint big enough, and it's kind of centrally located in town. It's flat.
So it's taken out by the ball field.
Ball and basketball.
It's possible.
It's parking too. It has to be parking.
What kind of draw do we expect? Because that's the question that I'm having. If this is going to be kind of a regional draw, then if we want to take a park and turn it into something else and, update the area around it to make it worthy of the regional draw, then, because like Coochie has a really good footprint, it would help utilize that spot where apartment housing neighborhood, back of the greenhouse. Not this wrong, especially if we do some more stuff over at 57th, maybe that helps tile that in. I'm just asking the
The
question.
nearest universal design playground is in Everett. Absolutely will be original. People will drive an hour to go to this playground.
It's already there. You say they've already done it.
In Everett?
Yeah.
That's the closest one to. It's definitely, it will be the most used playground. simply because we have so many families. I think I heard 20% was a number of
Really?
households with kids with some kind of special need.
So then the question is, where do we want to draw people to? What suits the greater scale of what the city's trying to get people to? If we know that this is gonna be a draw, where do we want to put it then to go in line with that plan? And where will it have then also secondarily the most economic impact for the betterment of, you know?
If I knew we were gonna continue with Harbor Heights Sports Complex, then I would say put it there, but I don't know that we're gonna make it into a sports complex, so it will then be,
I
so.
also don't think Harbor Heights is a good location for it, just because of the checkpoints.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, there was a playground in the conceptual plans for that sports complex. Neil Park is a possibility. It has a small playground there. It's kind of underutilized space, so the whole shape has some small primitive parking lots on either side. Fort Nugent, I'm not worried about the footprint. Definitely has the capacity square footage wise for it. That lower parking lot, I imagine is going to go away. So we're going to have to put in a new access into the park on that north side. So pathway will have to be from the upper parking lot.
What's the long-term plan with those trees to the east of the football field? A lot of those trees are dying. There's some invasive ivy in there.
Between the homes and the field.
That between so there's the trail, so there's the homes, the green belt, the trail. Then we have this other area that currently has, you know, disc golf on it, but kind of already addressing that issue. And then, I mean, because that could be a potential site as well for use. I mean, we're not been married to that grove of trees. I think there's only a couple of mature Doug firs in there. Grand firs. I'm just asking the question, especially if we're going to be expanding out that way for any other stuff with parking. And then it would put it closer to a parking lot. That's all I'm thinking for those who have mobility issues.
So we're still thinking about 8 pickleball courts at Fort Nugent.
And a basketball court.
Well, we took out the location actually. So
Yeah.
as part of the design, we're asking them to look at the most appropriate site for.
So that's another spot we're looking for home for pickleball, we're looking home for accessible.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily bad.
No.
I mean, I like the idea of a mall concept where you have, you know, multiple things that you can do. There's some benefit to that. Question on the playground. Is there kind of playground limit? You know, regular kid usage? I mean, is it, so it's not scaled down so much that it's not exciting to.
That's why they call it universal design. And so the point of it is to be all inclusive. So whether it's a parent with a disability or a special need playing with a blind kid or vice versa, they tend to have a little more equipment. They're more sprawl than the regular playground that would build up. And the big part is the surfacing and the access rate. So instead of like stairs and ladders, which you can have some of that, there's a lot more ramps and it has a multi-level support out. Then you have lots of different. Traditionally, you know, what parks will do is they'll put in a wheelchair swing and one ramp platform and all that good, right? But if you look at some examples like Grand Junction, Colorado is a great example of that. New park. So they have a 5 to 12, you know, a Taunton 12-year-old area, or 8-year-old, 8 to 12, kind of older kid area. And then they have like an outdoor fitness area as well. That's all of it's accessible. It's pretty well. But no, they're pretty exciting. They're a draw not just for families, but with kids with disabilities, which will be a big driver.
I didn't shut you down.
No.
But I agree, I mean, it could get overpopulated, especially with kid limitations. I like the idea of bringing it somewhere down by Windjammer. Because it's also right downtown. And if it really is a draw, um, more activity we can get down there, seems to me better.
Could you fit it in the property behind? Perhaps, yeah, it's quite a lot of acreage there.
How much of that property are we getting?
This piece right there. It's like that open grassy space.
Yeah, but is it the whole? thing?
We own everything around it,
Okay.
so we're acquiring that one. We already own the property on the other side. We already own.
Yeah, let's put it up on the screen.
Yeah,
just
so
so
we already,
Go team.
yeah, we own this here already, where the wood, this is the area.
Okay, gotcha.
Acquiring this one's kind of marshall, but I was not that far away from it. It was meant to be home, it's all grass area.
Parking, or would you put park? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
Hear me out. Hear me out.
I like logic.
If we know it's gonna be a regional draw, and we know we're gonna get traffic to it, if we put it in Fort Nugent, people are likely to use the bypass if they're coming off by that, I mean, going down Heller and around. Which means they're not seeing businesses, they're not seeing places they can have lunch, they're not seeing places where they can spend money, they're not seeing the texture and the feel of the community, they're not seeing the art installations and a variety of other things that we're trying to do, except the seed that's out of Fort Nugent. Fine, it's the great part. It's also, it's a sports park right now and kind of the locals' big park. I like Windjammer because it puts eyeballs down the things that we want people to have eyes on. It puts eyes on the places that people want to spend money. It also affords us the opportunity to do some necessary dirt work down there if we were to put it in the lower spots that are down there, which are below for king size that we've addressed, talked about. Knowing that also if the windmill project ever gets going, they're gonna have to do some stuff there, so we can make a nice mess once.
Yeah,
Find one of these.
and we do
Well, we
need,
could acquire that property there, this parking lot to be acquired, we can acquire half of that property.
yeah, because this
So
property
this
is
spot.
weird, yeah.
This spot would be fine. You just have to cross the street. So depending on the level of disability concern there, that's the only thing, right?
I think if we made like a crosswalk or something that was very like visible down in this area, that would be a problem for most people.
Because we also have the spots around the basketball court. We have the spots on this side of that entry gateway. We do have all this low land down here. All of this is like the low tide line because we didn't have the fill that we needed from the sewage treatment facility. So
They pump it out.
there's, right, so if we can raise that up, build something there, that's a premium thing. We put eyes in there. We have room to expand this and put, handicap parking all down here. We put people in the park. This thing will weather the seagulls.
Can you slow that down a little bit so that parking area, in relationship to county?
Okay, so Pioneer's right there. So, here's the car wash and all the Bay Shore, and then here's where that, that half acre crescent parking goes.
That's for sale.
I
This
think
is-
the parking lot area, that's a good truck.
I guess what I'm wondering is it allows us to expand parking. It allows us to, we've talked about kind of the things that need to happen at Windjammer for the next things to happen at Windjammer. Repairing some of the things that maybe didn't go exactly the way that we had hoped. We've done some of these other projects, so we can make the messes, fix all these things, make good on the things that didn't turn out right. Tally's mentioned that irrigation is a problem down there. We're pumping water out of it currently. We can revitalize with a really significant playground structure. We're also talking about putting in a pretty interesting piece down there as far as the windmill.
Yeah.
I mean, so a lot of that makes sense to me. It makes sense to me from a texture. It makes sense to me to giving us the opportunity to fix what didn't go right. And it gives us the opportunity to hopefully put more eyes on the small businesses and continue to revitalize that park and help, these businesses that serve.
What are those businesses there? Those are car.
These are cars, but if people are coming down through 20 and through Midway, they're going to see a lot of restaurants. I mean, even if some of them are the fast food places, they're going to see small business restaurants, they're going to see grocery stores, they're going to see places to fuel, all the places that they can spend money, which get sales tax, which only helps, not to mention there's plenty of small businesses. They see services that they can potentially access.
Can you, is there potential for ingress egress through that area of town to the park?
Yeah, you would, if we were to acquire that property.
Yeah, so you,
I'd want a 20 foot easement on this way and then just kind of an
so
arrow.
it creates another
So,
access. to the
Yeah, they
park.
would continue to operate like they are. right here off
So with the access coming between near the old bank,
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there.
I almost called it Inner West.
North driveway coming in. People use that already
Yeah.
they already use that already for accessing, people, and they use that little bridge that we have across there, so it's already showing up. We used to lease it for, parking for, we built the clean water facility. So, but it's really just not really being utilized.
and it probably won't ever, unless somebody comes along with some good imagination.
Well,
That's a single stream of thought. I don't know. It checks all the boxes for me of the things that I'm wanting if we're investing in the community with a significant upgrade to the texture of our parks. How do we then get money back into the community and money back, into the coffers to help offset the cost of doing it while providing a really great benefit to the region?
the museum's already talking about all fields, so that.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah, that building is being built, yeah. I don't know.
Is there enough footprint there for the park?
I think Gary's concern was,
Well, I would think so.
Well,
thought
I guess
for
it
parking,
depends on specific, yeah, are we thinking parking where the plane?
You can do both.
Okay,
You can put a park back in the city here.
Yeah, I mean, you can also-
We were just going with Eric's idea of the grass though, is that grassy area enough? For that park?
down here.
You can put
No, that's strip right
That's
there.
right.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we did the, put it in there too. I mean, that's where we did.
that's
a
twice the
farmer's
size of
market.
the playground at Portage, and
There is some.
it just needs raised up by
Yeah,
like probably 6 feet.
being longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, which lends well to these types of playgrounds because they are kind of spread out, so I think that they could work there, and then you have this really direct parking access to it right there.
And if that ever comes available, and it's talking about to increase parking and footprint, well, then you have a second point of egress, which would enhance
And
that.
without any further discussion about that, you can put a small green belt into, passing through that area to.
Right
Yeah.
now, we're looking to utilize that space for our food trucks in the park in that little spot, but we can really look at where else that could fit, so if we are,
Trucks in the park.
yeah, having a reoccurring food trucks in the
Oh,
park, like
yeah,
throughout the summer. And so right now that's been identified as a good space for that. That can move. I know we have People's Court, I think is what it was originally called. That circle in front of the interpretive center was originally designed for that purpose, but I think there's some issues there.
It's really called the People's Court.
I think on the designs, somewhere it says, right, People's Court.
It's sponsored by Judge Wapner.
So I think that even if the people's meeting, something like that. I don't know if anyone else has ever called it, but I saw it on
That's
the blueprint, and I was like,
I think
People's Court.
actually, I don't see that as a deterrent. I think that would be a compliment, possibly.
Yeah. the
Oh,
original-
totally.
It used to be a farmer's market too, but that would be better over, I think, on People's Court.
Yeah.
Like, that's the vendor food type areas where you have those events and open up the green space for actual.
There were
recreation.
just some concerns with illicit discharge, those types of things, because the People's Court, I don't know if you know that, is all cement and not permeable,
Yeah.
and where, so Camilla's happier to have us on grass than on cement, but just design things that can be done along the way to change it. But if we can incorporate that into the idea of when we're talking about when Gemma utilizing the spaces, then how to make a space that'll be a good spot for reoccurring food trucks and access to power and, where people will be coming to the park.
I mean, that would potentially be sitting between the playground and the park.
And the splash pad, in the summer.
And Bailey's on the other side too.
I know when we go with our child, we hit all the little play areas, we don't ever just go to one. You can't when you're there, you've got to, which is nice because then we as parents get to walk, plus you get to engage along the way. We play in the splash pad as much in the winter as we do in the summer.
And then can you just point out where the windmill is supposed to be going?
Right.
So it'd be kind of off to the side a little bit.
Little
More
further
that
west,
way.
no, the other way.
The other
It's
way.
further east.
Kind of
Like,
towards the end of
yeah,
the
Off
road
the
there.
end.
Like right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there,
Also,
Straight
be
up.
right in front of where we're talking about, like right.
Yeah, that's,
on the other side.
that's what I'm wondering about with the windmill and the location of it.
Brian's words always come to mind of, you know, it doesn't have to be everything to everyone in a space, and that definitely is where we always teeter with Windjammer Park of wanting to put everything there, and I thought that's a really good thing to consider.
Playground is gonna be more of a draw than the windmill.
I know.
If, you know, Brian's data is correct. So. I mean, the windmill doesn't even have funding. I guess my point is just because they've drawn it up right there, doesn't mean that it can't be adjusted according to priorities. I mean, you're not gonna, how much are you gonna lose with a giant windmill if you move it 10 feet this way, 20 yards that way?
I don't personally see it as an issue.
I mean,
Oh, we're meeting with them Wednesday.
Wednesday, and we'll hear more about it.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm just saying is,
This
If
It's
we
just something to
think-
keep in mind, I guess. when you-
we don't want to overcrowd the park, but also, that's not really a concern at Windjammer right now. I think we just want to bring crowds to the park, right? Like,
And it's set back off the pathway a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see this being a spatial issue between the park and the windmill at all.
That other area down there, right now, it looks like a water catch area. Is that potentially usable, or is that needed for water?
That's needed for drainage. They asked us to take it there. There's nice sod over that we put in the area by the basketball court, and that's where the fair was, or the carnival was intended to go. It didn't happen.
They are intending to have the carnival in the park next year. I already got notice of that.
Which
so
area?
I don't know. I just got notice to please reserve the park because they intend to have the carnival down there next year. So
Yeah, this, I mean, so this kind of lawn space here.
Yeah, there's that empty.
Yeah, unfortunately.
because with the universal design, it will need to be fenced.
Yeah.
So that will, it takes up,
But
you know, to put it right in the middle of something.
Right.
I mean, that green space should probably just
Stage.
stay
green space.
as what it is, and that triangle or diamond shape or whatever it is, and then the rest of the area can be programmed as needed. I mean, we've already talked about sunshades and some picnic areas and some different things kind of encroaching west and north of the splash pad and around the lagoon and things like that. So,
Could put it in between where the oak tree is now and where the windmill is going to go, but that's a little bit of a walk from the parking lot. Yeah, right about that area there.
I like that strip that Eric recommended, especially if we can acquire that parking lot above it.
Yeah.
Because then it just provides access from the park, from that area there. And then it's by the splash park, it's downtown.
Yeah.
I think it's good, that's a good
and as a
area.
side bonus, we get to fix the low level
Yeah.
while we do the construction. So it's like you get to take two things off the list with one project.
And it's not as windy as having it set closer to the water. What Bailey's gets so windy, and even when we just walk back a little bit, it calms, so it's.
That one you can put in the restroom.
So the accessible
Parking and
playground
restroom in
is
that area.
number 12 on council's priorities.
Okay.
And it's scheduled for 2025 to really address. And we've been moving like everything up, like things that we had in 24, we're doing right now.
Yeah.
25, we're doing right now.
Can we get a list of those priorities emailed to us?
Sure.
Thanks, Mike.
So this is one that I guess the discussion point is you guys want to wait until 2025, or do you want to start having some discussion in council on?
I always.
I would start
I would
discussion
leave it
with
up to
council.
council.
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not the construction moves up, don't know, but there's gonna be a lot of work preliminary.
So one thing we can do is we could put out a RFQ or request for qualifications for professional services to help us design it. Because there will be some infrastructure around it, parking lot, the pathways, what We want accessible restrooms right by there. We've got fencing. Just look at some of the locations that will most be appropriate and easiest for site prep and all that kind of stuff. And then we can work with the provider on this one as part of it.
We need to talk with the engineer too about what we need to do with the site, all that as well before we, as far as levels and type issues that we're talking about, drainage issues.
But that also puts us in a place where we can then go after grants and
Yeah.
show that, hey, we're shovel ready.
Yes.
I think we should.
The other thing it does is if it includes artist renderings, that kind of thing, it also gets people excited about it. It's easier to get buy-in.
Well, that makes sense anyway, because it's not like we're that far from in city government world for 2025 anyhow, just knowing that the pace at which it takes to play.
Blaine,
So-
what's the probability and the timeline on a purchase like that property?
This takes money.
Anything
Anything can be done with money.
But I mean, is it kind of in the forethought is there money that could be earmarked for a
If one
purchase like
deal
that
doesn't go through,
in the near
this
future?
could be another deal. So I
Okay.
guess I'll just put it at that.
Like, is it worth continuing conversations of utilizing that space if we have that property? Because it sounds like really we would only put the playground there if we had that property.
I mean, you're, by putting the possibility, it
Yeah.
makes it, it
More
was just
reason
kind
to
of my
purchase it,
idea, but
yeah.
if other people like that, then
I don't know, I
then
feel
seriously, we should.
Yeah. We're ready to plant a park there now.
I could go to
Playground,
council and
we're
say,
I
Put
forgot
a
it was
playground
you.
there.
Other areas we had talked
Good
about
Tom
with
credit.
the other committee was looking at some of the unused Navy land nearby where they're going to build a new school over there off of Regatta. And seeing if there's opportunities for land swapping or for land. Playgrounds, parks, or things like that. It's kind of under-serviced area, but we do have a lot of residential.
Where is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is.
Specifically?
So there's kind of, yeah.
Child development.
Olympic View, there's.
who's bringing it up? You were, who brought it up before on the map?
Oh.
Well, the
'Cause I missed-
Olympic View is going to go away eventually.
Yeah.
In the longer term, and that's going to be a park area. That's owned by the school district, but we can do a joint relationship with the Navy and grant funding. Get them on city park on Navy property. They have apartments.
Part of that is maybe, I know the child development center.
It's from
So Regatta, so all the forested areas, all the,
Torpedo and Regatta all the way back to the school.
that's all area there. They're gonna put apartment complexes in part of that area right now.
Okay.
They're moving apartments over from, is it Langdon?
Yeah, from the Lincoln Gate
Okay,
stuff.
over there. The school's gonna go north of the Olympic View now. They're building it without enough space, and so they're gonna envision that Olympic View comes away sometime, and then but we could do partnership with the school district on it. I mean, if you want an out of the box area that's really I was just thinking, look at the property next to the chamber there. I mean, that's a really visible area. It's got a lot of wooded areas, probably the problem with it.
Yeah, those are nice trees.
We were looking at a sculpture park. That's another area that just came to mind.
If the Navy is going to build apartments there, what's the strongest encouragement that we can give them to go to this playground? That doesn't impact our budget.
We can try to do a shared park relationship. If we do shared things and we can get them on board, there's grant funding on there. A lot of the kids that are accessible that need them are Navy children. So sure a lot of that population would benefit from it. So
This area here that we had a little bit of discussion around the 7th Avenue wetlands. How much of that is actually protected wetlands or what opportunities are for things beyond just trail systems there?
there's a highland area that's not very big. She and the one property was fired on I don't know, you can look at it, get it delineated, and you're right, there's a lot of, we have a lot of acreage there. We don't have any parking there.
We need something acres there.
And then again, we
You know,
have,
it's like 5 parcels of sitting on it.
It's dry up by Cordero Place, where the neighborhood is, and it's dry over off of Seventh.
Yeah,
And then the marshiest places is sort of right through the middle of it.
yeah, we have 5 parcels there, so.
and then the dry field section, with marsh, we're talking about possible fields or other recreational uses.
Yeah, we'd have to look at the restrictions with the conservation easements that we have on it. No, we can't use it for drainage retention, so we made that very clear. But there is some limited parking system. People see what the restrictions are.
So, so with this committee, yeah, we talked about park access and multi-generational interaction, adaptive needs. One thing we also talked about was information sharing. The Park and Rec and Marina one-stop area for information. But one, keep it separate from domain cities, social media sites. I think for how younger population doesn't like email, they prefer text and some of those other things to get their information from. Making it easy for people to submit public comments. They don't want to come to City Hall. They don't really want to navigate through a website. So we're looking at different best practice examples for registration, reservations, event info, some example sites, and then we're working with Sabrina right now, developing, improving our websites along with talked about programming, some of the planned programming. This is working on art programs, beginner adult pickleball, dance programs, Todd sports. Talked a little bit about teenage to young adults, especially those with special needs, how to best reach out to them. I've got contact with Tiffany Wheeler that we're going to reach out to with our county parents parent. And then staffing needs for that. There's a wide spectrum of different needs. Some of them require a very high staff to participant ratio. So finding those team members that are qualified to be able to do that, whether they're a therapeutic recreation specialist or have other credentials that can help us with those programs, so that we'll be looking at. Talk a little bit more about some of the art program, music classes, photography, and stuff like that. Some partnering agencies and programs that are in the community. Music Together. Aisha Mayfield, she's like a 500. And then thought of let's start moving forward now, so that we're going to be budgeting for the 25-26 next summer, right? Which is going to come up pretty fast. So having a good idea of what we need a budget for, some cost estimates in place, some preliminary designs. Any other updates or discussions you want to have?
I'm curious from your standpoint. Subcommittee groups, do you find them useful?
Oh, yeah, yeah, super helpful. One, it's a good backboard to give you an idea of our 1,001 to-dos on this list. You know, what should we be tackling first? And especially when we've budgeted for and have some plans, and we have like placeholders for things, refining that. Okay, you know, where do we need to redirect? You know, where what projects really should we be bringing forward to council? Where do we get to do some things around? And it's all really in part for. So, which grants we were really focusing on. Yeah, super helpful. Also nice to give you guys some homework assignments.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it was really nice to sit down with Carrie and Kate and be able to talk about programming and get their feedback, and they have different, networks in the community that I might not have, and so it's an opportunity to have someone focused in on that. So if we get some contacts for that specific type of programming, reach out to. And Brian just mentioned website, we're doing some, all our divisions were pretty separate as far as how you found information on our website. And so now it's site mapping the parks and recreation portion of the website. And so having some people who are end users being able to help us with that site map planning is going to be really helpful. So Brian, you mentioned homework. He gave Carrie and Kate homework on checking out our website, trying to find a few things, what that process is like, getting that feedback. So from my perspective, yes, the subcommittee is super, super helpful.
And all these amenity and placemaking type improvements are always much more successful if it is a community initiative. It should never be because Brian thinks it's a good idea. I implement the will of council. I implement what the community wants. I can go out and do what needs to stuff and find out, but the direction we go and what the city wants to be in the future needs to come from you guys.
Should we move on to the Parks and Rec director report?
All right, got a full list here. So I mentioned October 25th is the workshop. So formally inviting you guys to participate in that, talking around Harbor Heights and options with that project. So having your thoughts and comments there will be very helpful for council, especially since we've done site visits and had several discussions around it. The Angel of Creativity statue install update. So we received notification this morning from the hearing examiner that the project has been approved on the city site. So usually after a local 14-day appeal window, a packet will be sent to state ecology department, who then has 30 days to make a decision on the shoreline variance. So it's all domino triggering of permits and whatever. It just takes time to get through all the red tape. But the community development department will be sending that packet near the end of the appeal window.
Development services.
Or development services.
Yeah, some place to do it. Here it's called.
Are we making that change?
I talked about it, but I don't know.
Okay. Still to be decided on restructuring that. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern, but we're checking to see if there's anything else that we need to address, that we can address on our side, just to make sure that we're shovel ready once all the approvals.
We have like an estimate, maybe an idea for beginning of installation, just a ballpark.
I don't.
No, that's good.
Um,
I mean, is it like, do we think it's gonna happen like in Q4 or is it gonna be Q1 2024?
I'm
Two.
gonna guess it will be next year.
Okay, that's fine. I just get asked about it.
But as part of that, we might tackle this as one of the committee items is just a reconfiguration of the park with the access, broadening that permits to the parking lot, and then we'll in-house, we'll tear out that other half of the roundabout and saw that and clear the parking lot as well. But we'll talk about it and finalize those plans. Like I mentioned, the government relations firm selection, we'll meet tomorrow to do that. We're also make a selection here on a park supervisor, and then we'll do some additional hiring for park maintenance specialists. We're going to be doing reviews and interviews for the recreation coordinator. We've made a selection for a new assistant harbor master. So a lot of hiring and new staff going in place.
Park supervisor, where would that person fit? That person work for Tally?
No,
work
they'll-
for them?
Yeah, so Tally's been active as kind of an interim. So they'll replace Hank's old position. So they'll be housed out of park shop there at the municipal shops. They'll be my division for parks. So I'll be Liz's cohort on the park side. And then Garden Club, their meetings are every, I think it's second Tuesday of the month. So tomorrow is their meeting. I'm going to attend it. If any of you would like to join me with that, it's 9 o'clock at the First United Methodist Church. They did a great presentation to council last week on their centennial, and they just had their open house over at Stone Park. We installed a plaque for them, a nice little garden area on the southwest side of the park. So I'm going to go over there and just kind of meet and greet and touch base with them and see how else we can continue to partner with them. For us, they've done a lot of great things around the community. It was pretty impressive watching the presentation. All of a sudden, they've done over the last 100 years, with thousands and thousands of dollars. Who knows how many hundreds of thousands of hours of volunteer work it's been helping. They kind of started out as the very first community services, parks department improvement, I guess, arm. They said, "Oh, we need to do something with these sidewalks." And I said, "Oh, that's one support." They created this what they call it, it's like
Yeah.
eventually turn into the windmill discussion with Ryan Jones Wednesday. That'll be 1 o'clock, and that'll be here in this room. I just had Carrie and Eric on that as a kind of committee. If you want to attend that, Tom, you're more than welcome, but I think we have to give notice of that.
We'll talk about
Or I guess we don't necessarily have to conform with the
it.
sunshine
Technically,
laws.
the paper let us know that committees don't technically have to comply with the law.
Well, we do for that, we are recommending.
But we
It's
do try-
changed, so yeah.
We do try.
We'd
to-
like to do a special meeting for transparency.
So
Very simple.
They're gonna be there.
you are welcome. You are welcome.
Give me the time.
It's 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Yeah, right.
We're going to five to as well.
Yeah, so why don't we just go ahead and notice it?
All right, they're not considered quorum, so.
All right, I will add you guys to the meeting. Okay?
What time?
It's 1 o'clock.
Because we changed my advisory. This, I don't believe this room is available.
It is Marina Advisories at.
No,
3.
I thought there's unions in here on
We have
Wednesday.
negotiations, that only goes until 1. There's
So you'll be
another.
here all day,
There's
Brian.
another, yeah, I am.
This will be Brian's office.
I know there's
Wednesday.
another block, like reserved, and
Okay.
I think that someone's putting in the place. We have like all these meetings back to back. We're also going to meet with North Whitby roller hockey here.
Cool.
We do that at 2:30, just to talk about land use proposal. I invited you to that. I asked them to come to our board meeting, just to talk in public comments, just to say, hey, this is what we're looking at. They have already talked to the school district, so anyway, if any of you would like to come or stay a little later after our windmill discussion, yeah, I'll be meeting with them at 2 o'clock.
It's a lot of fun things. Windmills, roller hockey. That's what we do.
Yeah, and that's with.
Yeah,
his
and
name's
let us
Ed
know because we
Moran.
have to have someone here to record those meetings, so. If there's gonna be a quorum, it'd be better to confirm it now, so we know if there's not a quorum, then we don't have to have staff here.
Just two possible quorum. So,
No, I'm just saying for
Staff
planning
time.
for our time,
yeah.
to have someone here who's available to cover that. So it'd be easier if we knew.
Could I just have a voice recorder?
to do The video, and then you have to do the minutes.
Why the video?
Well, you have to
I mean,
sign it.
I
We
understand minutes,
videoed
you know,
all
but-
of them, just like we videoed the workshop.
Transparency.
So it's for the public to see what we're.
Right, but minutes provide the transparency.
And they still have, only have the action.
They do what's done by the body, not necessarily said.
So, and we like that on the recording, so when they said, the minutes don't talk about everybody said, well, you don't have to cover that in the minutes because we have the recording.
Yeah, we can just turn it on if it's in here, so that means staff doesn't.
Let's see, we are doing a playground field project. It's about $76,000 for 5 playgrounds, including Fort Nugent. All of them are out of compliance right now. So that's a safety project that's being posted, and we'll get a contractor on to do that. We're also looking at improvements to the splash park. So we're going to be replacing 5 of the actuators, as well as putting in a older actuator, and changing the controller for it. So the renovation for it will solve a lot of our problems with continuously running water and allow us to have better control of the water usage through the activation, which is like a short sequence, and our own programming operating on. So there's also a wind and rain sensor to automatically shut off the spray park in inclement weather. Control of the light for us to track it usage as well as change out. So that project we're working on, that's $51,000 project. Pickleball court RFP, the committee did final edits on it. That's being posted out right now. Baseball field renovations, $148,000 project for field materials installed. That's going out right now for formal bid. Lagoon dock replacement. One of our contractors, MSA, Marine Services, is doing the finalization for a habitat assessment. We've uploaded the design plans from Evans, which is firm we're working with on it, to the Department of Fish and Wildlife folder. So from there, we're just kind of in a holding pattern while they review all the stuff. We did a JARPA, which is a Joint Aquatic Resources Permit application. And it's one of those applications that requires like 5 other applications. Yeah, so we're just like with the age-old install, we're just, while we're waiting for them to do their review of it, we're just making sure that we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed and everything in line for that. Hoping to have that in place and installed by next summer. That was paid for with a T-Mobile grant. And have checked with the provider Evans. It's a build on site dock, so they're ready to go whenever we get those permits filed. Shoreline restoration. So we have a erosion control extension deadline that's coming up. If you remember, the king tides last winter scoured out a lot of material along Windjammer Park and started digging out underneath our main walkway path that's used by the public, to the point that it was becoming a safety issue. We had to close off that sidewalk. We did put in a permit for emergency erosion control measures with large sandbags, and been working on getting funding in place for a shoreline restoration project. I'll address the safety issues, as well as some other areas, just making a more naturalized shoreline that can handle some of that scarring issue. We're still looking for funding to get that planning going. So I'm working with Ashley Keys with the Department of Fish and Wildlife on how we can get that extended until we get a preliminary plan in place. Otherwise, we're supposed to remove those by October 15th. I'm not going to do that because without structurally undermining that pathway. But so waiting to hear back from.
So Brian, you and I could probably reach out to the county a little bit. They have some experts over there. Keep on changing it, but they should put somebody over there that's short.
What's the extent of the funding needed to be acquired to?
Well, the funding at this point really is for the planning. This has been pulled in with a larger city shoreline restoration project. We have several areas that need to get addressed. This one just has a little bit of a time issue with it, with the temporary measures. But I mean, even with all this planning, we're a ways out before we can actually get something.
I guess I just think, like, is that a $50,000 thing? Is that a $5 million thing? You know, like, where are we at as far as just getting the planning? Like, what's the funding?
The original planning was 300,000, but that was a huge area all the way from the yacht club, all the way to. Which was intended for, now, we wanted to do it all in a collaborative area all together on this, so now we're stuck with doing it together. And they're kind of ridiculous thing in that they give us a short time that we're supposed to do it, but yet you just talked about all the permits that are required on something on the shoreline, so it's kind of contradictory. It's not like you could just do things really quickly on it, but I think if we're in the process of doing things, then they give you more breathing time. And that's, if we would have been able to get this grant funding, we'd been able to say we're in the process, but now we can't say we're in the process, so he's on plan B and trying to figure out what to do with it by itself, which is not much, but much better to deal with it as a whole area plan, but we'll work it through.
Mostly, I just need to get permission, just leave everything as it is and see how we go through the winter. And if everything holds just fine, great, we know we're good. And I'm happy to jump through whatever hoops they need me to jump through to just keep extending that out while we get planning and get the work done. Anything along the shoreline is just a tediously involved, complex, long process. So
The backs will be good for a couple of years, and that's really what we do. For a couple of years. But they didn't give us a permit for a couple of years. They gave us for
no,
for
they
a
give it to
couple of
like
months.
6 months.
Yeah.
I really think we're going to get anything done in 6 months. If you want to give us a pass, to just say, you know what, go ahead and install it.
Is this gonna be one of those things where we have to, like, in order to do what needs to be done, given the nature and proximity, we're going to need to do like some salmon habitat creation?
If we could do that, there's funding.
Yeah.
So, I had a great proposal that council threw out on Medina that would have done some shoreline there and try to lean at a beach or. Right. You know, we had some funding lined up, but now it's not there anymore, so. That's a great opportunity.
So a very large work in process project, and one that it's important to address. Anyway, a lot of graffiti and vandalism response happening. We're trying to get to it as fast as we can. But it's costly, right? Because it comes out of our operational budget. So it just slowly eats away at our ability to do a lot of other great things for the community. We have a great police force that's helping us try to crack down on it, monitor that. In most cases, we're able to identify and catch you doing it, but just do see a lot of it out. So if you hear about it, know we are responding as fast as we can to clean up evidence for it. It just takes the kind of crew from other regions stuff to do the we are working on the purchase of a new city Christmas tree. Right now, we're just looking on location for that. We might just place it where the old one was there on Pioneer Way temporarily until we have a better location. That corner right there is kind of a terrible place for reasons beyond just sideline safety. It's also not a great place to grow a tree in that size. And we want it in an area where we can have some events around it and do some fun things with it. So I was working on that. And then Tom Goss that contact that I mentioned before, maybe I'm going to schedule a field trip for us to go on the site and talk to them. And as soon as I get that, I'll send out an email to see what date or time works for you guys. And we'll schedule it. That's all right. Liz, you got anything?
Nothing additional than what we've talked about. We recruitment for the rep coordinator is very exciting, because all these lists of things to do will happen a lot more quickly as soon as that happens, so it's really, yeah, really good. I'm just taking some notes, Christmas tree programming, that's gonna be fun, so, yeah. And if you ever have any ideas or thoughts about recreation programming in the city, feel free to reach out to me directly as well and have a conversation. I'd love to have any kind of conversation with you.
Let's go ahead and move on to item D, project update, advisory board. Municipal.
Moving around, so a couple months, I guess it was early, April, July, we talked about, a project that Kim has been working on, and bringing it to life, which is the boards and committees, a rewrite of the boards and committees codes, bylaws. And so, in October, we're gonna take at the council workshop, we're gonna take a first draft of kind of the things that we've been discussing. So first, there's a draft ordinance, which is gonna be the universal policies for boards, commissions, and committees. And that's just gonna have all, making consistent how we appoint members, how we search for members, terms, what a quorum is, student members, ex officio members. It just documents the training that's required. It also, which this board that Brian had brought on, is annual work plans for each of the boards, so that all the boards have those type of things. And then the next part of it will be a ordinance which is specific to each board, because we know obviously all the boards and commissions have different duties and powers, so there'll be a ordinance section for each of the boards. One thing, so the park board, several months ago, you guys already updated this. We did make a slight tweak to call you Parks and Arts Advisory Commission. To no longer, we're gonna do the Marina Advisory Commission, so your Planning Commission, Arts Commission, making the public facing boards, that's gonna be our recommendation. So a slight change in name there. The powers and duties that you've already recommended. Yeah, meeting schedule, conflict of interest. So though that each board will have its own ordinance, so where things need to be tweaked that are not uniform. And then the third thing will be the actual bylaws of each board and committee, and that gets more into the nitty-gritty about your policies, your procedures. And for those boards that have budgets, you know, just that kind of information. So we just wanted to give you, these are just in draft form. And we'll go to a council workshop, have that discussion with council, see things that they may want added, changed. And then we will come back to the boards in November to go over a final draft that could be adopted in December. And then the new things would start as effective January 1. One of the things that might affect is term members. We want to go to consistent terms, January through December for everybody, have them staggered on and even years. So what we would be recommending to council is we've made a chart of everyone that's currently serving, what their end date is, and then what the new end date will be, you know, but I think we bumped them all longer, none of them less. So the terms might get extended by a little bit just to get everyone. So let's take time to look over those, like I said, we're gonna have the discussion in October, but then we'll come back.
You want comments, if any, from
Sure.
these guys?
Yeah. Again, this is just for consistency across all the boards, so we all have an idea of where we're going, how to do it. That was all I have on that.
Great work. Yeah, thanks for that work.
Thank you.
Thanks. She
Thanks,
has been,
Cam.
she has been the data behind this researching and pulling it all together, so.
Okay, so item number 7, member comment. About determination of future agenda items.
we're seeing kind of how, well, Brian made mention of how the timeline is sort of accelerating. And we also made mention of kind of like where city council's priorities are. I think I'd like to see something on the agenda where we see how we make those things align with sort of these accelerated timetables, knowing that we're having these improvements and sort of this redevelopment, parks and recreation thing, and see where those things line up so that we're making sure that we're getting some appropriate synergy. Because the last thing I'd like to do is have us spend a whole lot of time, but city, on something, and we build all this momentum here or in our subcommittees. But city council's not ready to handle this because their priority was so long. And so by the time it actually gets to them, the energy is gone because we moved on to other things. I think that would be a shame for us. And as well, I don't think city council receives the best either, and are best maybe able to have the information needed to make their decisions. So I'd like to just see if we can kind of set those things on a similar timetable so we make sure we're working strategically.
That's a great idea. We can do parks and recreation master plans and, planning around all this stuff and have all these committee meetings. But ultimately, the budget is our implementation document. And what we approve in the budget is going to be based off of what council's priorities are. That's what the administration will check against. So, yeah, I agree. Like, make sure you guys are on the same page. I think we either went away or haven't scheduled workshops with commissions. I don't know if that's going to come back. I really hope so, because you guys really are a branch of council, right? You are subject matter experts that council appoints to research and provide recommendations to them on these things that they have very little time to put some thought and research in before they have to make a decision that changes the direction this is going on. Some very big topics. That's where your real value is. I mean, it's great for you guys to help us with our alignment, but really what you bring back to council and say, council, this is how we think you should make a decision, is where you really change the direction the city goes with some of these things and provides us the ability to implement. So yeah, I agree. What that looks like beyond the discussion here, which probably should talk about as well. How do you make sure that council feels like you're on the same page with them, that you're going the right direction? See if there's any guidance you have from them of, hey, these are the topics and our priorities that are important to us that we want this to happen.
Well, I think it's a good time, given that we just changed our ex officio and all of that. I mean, to just with new, just streamline it. It's probably no better time now to make that happen.
So
I don't know.
what do you want to say? Just a review of council priorities?
Yeah, review of council priorities, and I think the alignment between then our responsibilities and input, so that, and if we need to maybe offer some information towards that, like, well, we're working on a priority here. Does this maybe move up your list? When you hear from us, or when, especially with Erickson here, hearing from us as well, and then becoming aware of what the things that we're dealing with, and maybe the more pressing need for it, then maybe it does change some priorities, or at least helps impact the understanding there. Obviously, they've got a big job to handle, so I don't.
And I think as
But-
staff, we're preparing for a new council, new mayor, and that retreat will take place in February, which I would assume they will kind of renew, look at their priorities. So working up to that, I think that's a great step to be prepared for that.
Our 2-year budget cycle
Yes.
will be in next year for 25 and 26. Yes. So that's a major where, it's harder to come in. Well, that's a good idea. Better to be in that plan. We'll plan some fun things that we're planning.
I think that we should also discuss, I think we've kind of done this, but I think now that we're working in subcommittees and getting more traction on some of these things, revisit what our priorities are as well in here. I think we talked about them in general, but then when we know that information, then we can know what ours are as well. So whether that is the adaptive playground, or that's, I think we're working on all these things, working on pickleball, working on some things with, Harbor Heights, but just making sure too that we put those in strategic order so that when they're going to go to council's plate, we have everything done and handled and all the details done, and it's offered on a silver platter as far as the information goes for decision making.
How about leading up to that, since you had asked for it before, we'll send you like the list of projects we're currently working on, what we have on our department, what Blaine calls now playing. You can see from that, because we did that in like February, and you can see already like how much of that has been shifted forward.
Yeah. It would also be, I think, great to see what's been taken off that list since February, what's been
Yeah, what's been
accomplished and
accomplished.
achieved. Because one of the comments I think I've said several times that I get from people when they're out about asking questions, so I wasn't done. And I could talk about some of the work that we're doing, but I'm blind to a lot of the other stuff.
Well,
getting done.
that's why it's all this shifted forward, because everything on our now plan is
Right.
either done or just about at the end of the process.
And like you said, they're not gonna go to the website, they're not coming down here to read what's done, so sometimes we are, the social media still are the humans, that are communicating that face to face and building and repairing trust.
That really lovely document that you guys give out at the leadership meeting, is that something that would be appropriate to share? That also, you can see not only where the Parks and Recreation ranks and the different priorities, but you can get a picture of everything, which I think is very, very helpful for a board to see, okay, this is what the rest of the boards and city council is doing. Here's where the priorities we are working on work into those. And it's a lovely looking document. Did you make it?
For the board.
Sabrina,
the
okay,
treats?
Sabrina, yeah, did
Yeah.
Sabrina make it? Very beautiful. So it'd be neat to share that.
You can put it under the director's section.
Anything else?
Okay, well, one other thing, sorry, okay. I'd like to hear from Blaine just more, because every time we talk about one of these things, I'm like, this thing is available. And like, I think it'd be interesting to hear from Blaine, just kind of like places where their eyes are on, looking at other expansions and things like that. Rather than giving them, that parking lot's available. Well, they're spending every year, well, we're working on this. Or the ones that are on the dream list, but we don't have a willing buyer, or what, I think that might be helpful just as part of our background to our master planning work, so we can have some of that information. And because until Blaine says something, that's all, nobody knows about that, but Blaine says this thing right now. Well, I don't know if anybody else has an interest in that, but
I think that's a good idea.
Blaine, do you have any interest in that?
I'm here, that's why
Yeah.
I'm attending for it. You and I had a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that parking lot never came.
No.
Discussion when I-
Right. But I think that's, helpful for how we just envision a lot of the stuff. Because if it's all pipe dream, then let's keep it there. But if it's pretty tangible reality, then let's use our imagination and vision towards it, if it's a benefit, and if it's, or if at least evaluate it for that. And then let city council have one less thing to think about, if we can make a recommendation, and then if they can trust our work enough to at least consider that, then that cleans their plate up a little bit too, hopefully.
Oh, I'll let Blaine determine what of the 1,000 pokers in the fire that's relevant to share with
Yeah.
you guys, kind of an overview of, things that the city's doing. But, all right, otherwise I'll give you the ready to put the agenda out and just touch base and see if there's items maybe that come up. Oh, I guess the last thing was just a scheduling the next, if you guys want to do another round of committee meetings before your next regular scheduled meeting.
I think we haven't scheduled for.
You get one for facilities, but
Facilities.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Did we sort of? I'm sure we'll like to do that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right, you want to do? Maybe that. Say the 20th.
10 o'clock. again.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like October 25th?
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So that's fine, let's say at 10.
so that.
Adjournment meeting then.